When I attended a family dinner with William, I took the initiative to say that I wanted to get married and have a family soon. He then thought that I was eyeing his family's property and that I was marrying him just for money. So he slapped me more than a dozen times in public. After that, he turned around and ran to chase his jealous childhood sweetheart. I grabbed his hand and pleaded with him not to leave. But he angrily pushed me down the stairs, causing both my legs to break and my skull to crack. I stayed in the ICU for a month before I regained consciousness. This time, I didn't make a scene. Instead, I took the initiative to contact my mother who was overseas. Mom, I agree to what you said about inheriting the estate last time. After checking out of the hospital alone, I took a taxi to William's company. Standing downstairs of the company, I suddenly felt strange about this place where I had worked for 9 years. Just after being away for a month, my information was completely deleted from the system, and the security guard stopped me from entering. Helpless, I had to take out my phone and call William, but no one answered. Instead, Mia made a video call to me. On the other end of the video, she said with a slightly embarrassed smile, "I didn't expect Daphne to be discharged from the hospital so soon. William is worried about my personal safety, so the company doesn't allow strangers to enter now. Don't worry. I'll ask the security guard to let you in right away." The originally closed door opened to me at Mia's command. I stood there in a daze for a few seconds before slowly walking in. The door of William's office was not closed. When I pushed it open, Mia was sitting on the sofa in a revealing camisole and gave me a faint smile. William beside her was bare-chested, and the atmosphere between them was particularly ambiguous. I took a look and then withdrew my gaze. Without hesitation, I put my resignation report on the desk. Seeing that I ignored them, William frowned and blocked my way, explaining to me, "Mia just returned to the country not long ago. You know, the relationship between our two families is very good, and our parents also asked me to get closer to her. Besides, she is more qualified for this position than you. It's not just that. Daphne, you don't know yet, right? I'm going to get engaged to William." Mia interrupted William's words and then showed me the diamond ring on her hand. William also had an identical one on his hand. William didn't explain much about the engagement. He just looked at me calmly. I looked up at him and nodded gently. Okay. I didn't question or ask for an explanation. Instead, I pointed to the document on the table. "I've submitted my resignation report, and the process is underway. I've also handed over my work." William obviously didn't expect me to say such things. His eyes widened slightly. I turned around and left, completely ignoring the surprised looks of the two people behind me. The pain in my legs clearly spread to every nerve of mine. Even now, I can still recall the scene at the family dinner when William pushed me downstairs in order to chase the jealous Mia. My love for him had long since disappeared during the month I struggled to survive in the ICU. William came chasing after me at some point. He stood right behind me. He hugged me from behind, buried his head in my neck, and gently rubbed his cheek against my neck. "Mia and I are childhood sweethearts. She'll get jealous when she knows I'm getting married. Don't take the engagement too seriously. The William family and the Mia family are well matched. I don't care." I directly interrupted William's unfinished words and distanced myself from him. We had been together for 9 years and I had done more intimate things with him. But now, I felt a bit resistant to his closeness. William's face turned ugly for a moment, and he stubbornly stood still. He stared at me as if to confirm my attitude. "You and she are childhood sweethearts, and you've been together longer than me. The engagement is also the elder's idea, and I won't ask about it. Don't worry. I really want to resign. I'm not jealous or throwing a tantrum." William wanted to say something more, but Mia stuck her head out, and her voice came from the office. "William, where did you put my underwear?" "The lace one." She met my gaze and then realized, saying with a bit of innocence, "Sorry, I didn't know you were still here. I've been with William for so long that I forgot you're still his girlfriend for a moment." I casually responded and then left the company. Early the next morning, after learning the news of my discharge from the hospital, my mother called. "Dear, how's your body? Mom is getting old. I just want you to come back and accompany me soon. For all these years, you've been following William, having no status and being laughed at by his family. Regarding the property, it's best that you can figure it out. Your stepfather's property isn't particularly large, but it's enough to ensure you have a worry-free life for the rest of your life, and you won't have to live in fear every day. In the past, when I heard my mother's words, I might have couldn't help but refute a few sentences. I thought it was enough to be with the person I loved. Money was not important at all. But now, I couldn't say a word. In the 9 years in William's family, I had never had a place. When are you planning to come back? I can make preparations. I looked at the calendar on the wall, and a red circle was particularly eye-catching. In 10 days, it would be the 10th anniversary of my relationship with William. In 10 days. I'll deal with everything here, and then I'll go. I hung up the phone and then found that William had been standing behind me at some point. He frowned slightly, trying to see the note on my phone. What 10 days? Who were you talking to? I put my phone face down on the table and casually perfunctorily replied, a friend introduced me to a new job. There's still a place for you in the company. You don't have to rush to leave. Even if Mia takes your position, there are other positions. William pursed his lips, not quite understanding why I insisted on resigning. No need. Seeing my attitude, he was a bit annoyed. Before he could speak, Mia downstairs started to urge, William, come back to the ancestral house for dinner today. Don't keep Uncle and Aunt waiting. Hearing this, the fingertips I had been hanging down trembled slightly. When William and I first started dating, his parents looked down on me. They thought I was just a wild girl from a remote and poor place, and I was in no way worthy of William's wealthy family background. But every time we went back to the ancestral house, William would surely bring me along and unhesitatingly stand up for me, fighting against his parents. He also promised me that as long as he was around, there would always be a place for me in the William family. But this time, William's eyes were a bit evasive, and his tone of voice was somewhat unnatural. After what happened last time, you know my parents aren't in good health. They'll get angry if they see you. Don't get me wrong. I'll talk to my parents again about the engagement. After all, Mia has grown up under their eyes, so they're naturally closer to her. Once this is over, my parents won't care anymore. William's words were full of partiality towards Mia. It wasn't that he had forgotten his promise to me, but in his eyes, there was someone more worthy of his devotion. I raised a smile, just as I usually did. I didn't refute or make a scene. Mia urged a few more times, and William's patience with me was completely worn out. He left without looking back, saying indifferently before leaving, Daphne, I get tired of explaining things to you every day. Try to understand me a little bit. Every time William and I had a quarrel, he would always say this with a tired face. I would feel distressed and start to reflect on myself, wondering if I was being too willful. After self-adjustment, I would continue to immerse myself in this worthless relationship. William was wearing an expensive suit, and Mia was wearing a high-end custom-made dress. The way they walked side by side was really quite a match. Watching the backs of the two getting further and further away, I calmed down and started to pack my things. Over the 9 years, William and I had left countless memories. I used to think that he loved me. The decoration of the villa was done according to my preferences. He liked the balcony without windows, imagining that he could bask in the sun with our children in the future. But now, we didn't even have children, and he no longer loved me. At that time, the villa didn't have a housekeeper or a nanny. Knowing that I had a weak stomach, William would cook nutritious meals for me every day with his own hands. But now, all of that had long been blurred in my memory. He used to be afraid that I would get cold on my way to work, so he secretly knitted a scarf for me. His knitting skills were clumsy but full of love. You should have what others have. When he put the scarf around me, he also left a kiss on my cheek. He rubbed my head and acted coquettishly beside my neck like a big cat. Come home early after work, or your boyfriend will worry. I don't know when it started, but William got tired of our relationship. The first time I proposed to him, William said we were too young, and getting married too early would make us get tired of each other like other couples. The second time I proposed to him, I prepared a surprise, but accidentally heard his conversation with his brother. I've lost my freshness for Daphne. It's so boring. But she's really good to me, and I don't want to break up. A woman proposes to a man, but the man is indifferent. Can't she really tell that I don't love her anymore? The last time, I gave it my all and proposed to marry William in front of his parents, even saying that I didn't need the betrothal gift. But his childhood sweetheart Mia was also there. When she found out, she got angry and jealous. William panicked completely. He forgot the love he had for me in the past. He couldn't tolerate others hurting me, but he himself pushed me down the stairs. After hitting a wall time and time again and showing my love, I finally realized who William had been waiting for all along. Tears suddenly welled up in the corners of my eyes and dropped onto the tattered scarf. I wiped my face and took a deep breath. I had someone seal the windows of the balcony. I tore up the diaries I had written about William over the past 9 years. I burned the tattered scarf to ashes with a lighter. For a whole week, William didn't send me any messages. I had long since moved my luggage out of his villa. William thought I was just throwing a tantrum and didn't care about me. But as time passed, he seemed to remember me. 3 days before I went abroad, it was the 10th year of our relationship. William rarely called me. Daphne, the 10th anniversary is coming up. I've reserved a restaurant. Let's have a good talk. As soon as he finished speaking, I received a text message with the address William sent me. That restaurant was also the place where William and I confirmed our relationship. As always, I would prepare a gift for William on every anniversary. This year would be the last time. I sat in the restaurant, watching the time pass by minute by minute. It was already half an hour past the appointed time, but William still hadn't showed up. Just as I was about to call him, suddenly, colorful fireworks burst in the sky outside the restaurant. The fireworks formed the words "Mia, happy birthday." Everyone was attracted by this scene. I finally found William, who had been missing. He was wearing a suit, holding roses, and kneeling on one knee to propose to Mia. On the screen of the building not far away, the engagement posters of William and Mia started to roll. William is really generous. He booked a 1 million yuan per minute big screen like this. But I remember William's girlfriend doesn't look like this. What girlfriend? Rich people play around. You should call her a mistress. The one in front of us is the real deal. They're childhood sweethearts and are about to get married. The whispers reached my ears, and no matter how I heard them, they all sounded ironic. So it wasn't our 10th anniversary, but Mia's birthday and a proposal party. I let out a soft sigh and threw the prepared gift into the trash can. I planned to leave this place. Mia, the protagonist, appeared in front of me at some point. She cast off the gentle and innocent look she had when she was around William and gave me a provocative smile. I heard it's your 10th anniversary with William today? Let me tell you, he didn't remember at all. It's just because it happens to be my birthday that he remembered you even exist. If it were in the past, I might have already fought with her. Really? Well, wish you 2 happiness. Have 8 babies and 1 birth. I raised the corners of my lips, then pushed her aside, and prepared to leave. But Mia's foot slipped and she plopped down on the ground. All the champagne on the table spilled over her. Before I could react, William, who rushed over from the side, saw this scene. Daphne, have you had enough? Without saying a word, he grabbed my collar and pushed me hard towards the table corner. The shards pierced into my palm, and blood gushed out instantly. I told you I'd handle the engagement issue. Why did you hurt Mia again? The glass shards were still stuck in my palm, and the stinging pain spread throughout my body. Before I could open my mouth to explain, Mia, who was unharmed beside me, suddenly covered her chest and gasped for breath. William was completely panicked. His hands were shaking as he dialed the driver's number, and his eyes even turned red. Don't you know Mia has asthma? She's delicate, not like you. He roared at me, venting all his dissatisfaction on me. If you want to get married so badly, go marry someone else. I won't marry you. Get out and don't show up to annoy me again. People around were laughing at me, and the pain in my palm gradually went numb. I watched their figures gradually moving away. My heart still couldn't help but ache. I took a deep breath and said softly, William, let's break up right on this 10th year. I didn't know if William heard my last words. What responded to me was only the dust raised by the car wheels. I booked the earliest departing flight and left this place full of troubles. When I was about to board the plane, William's video calls kept ringing. After I deleted his contact information, he sent me text messages one after another using strangers' phones. Where are you? Stop fooling around, okay? The messages didn't stop until I threw my phone into the trash can. After the plane landed, the first person I saw was my mom. It had been nearly 10 years since I last saw her. The old lady still looked radiant. I forced a smile and hid my casually treated right hand behind my back. Before I could say anything, I was tightly hugged by my mom. "You've lost weight." My mom's eyes were red. She kept patting the non-existent dust on my clothes. Finally, she couldn't help turning around and wiping the tears from the corners of her eyes. Seeing her like this, I also felt a lump in my throat. My nose was sour and I almost cried. When my mom married my stepfather, she called me countless times. She asked me to settle in Australia with her. At that time, I had just confirmed my relationship with William. I was bent on trying to make William's parents look up to me, so I never agreed to it. But after all these twists and turns, I'm back. My mom saw the injured hand I hid behind my back at a glance. She gently stroked it. The glass shards inside weren't even cleaned up properly. "If I had known you were living so miserably in China, I would have separated you and William and dragged you here even if I had to." My heart felt extremely sour, but I still smiled to comfort her. "Mom, it's okay. I don't plan to go back. This time I'll stay by your side all the time and take care of you in your old age." My mom was naturally very happy to hear me say this. She was pulling my luggage with one hand and holding my hand with the other. All the way, she was talking about how she fell in love with my stepfather and got married. "Your stepfather left all his property to you. From now on, our mother and daughter will live a good life and keep this family business." My stepfather owned several mines. Just as my mom said, even if we just lay back, we couldn't spend all this property in our lifetime. I wasn't overwhelmed by the sudden money. I was just glad that my mom could live such a good life after leaving that scumbag, my dad. My mom didn't take me home immediately. Instead, she asked the driver to take me to the hospital. After dealing with the wound on my hand, when my mom saw the scars from me falling down the stairs, tears welled up in her eyes instantly. The abraded area had grown new flesh, but because the dressing hadn't been changed for a long time, the wound was extremely hideous. When William pushed me down the stairs, I instinctively grabbed the handrail, but still rolled down. I rolled directly from the second floor to the first floor. My back hit the steps, and the marks still haven't faded. My mom only knew that I was injured and hospitalized, but she didn't know that I was in the ICU and almost didn't make it. Even if I wanted to hide this, as long as she wanted to investigate, she would surely find out. So I told her everything that happened at Daphne's house. In the end, my mom was sobbing, just holding my head and sighing. "Dear, you've suffered." Just this sentence broke all my defenses. The grievances and pain I had suppressed for 10 years burst out at this moment. Tears couldn't help falling. Clearly, I was already an adult in my 20s, but now I was crying like a child in front of my mother. After the examination, the doctor told me that I was recovering well and there was no major problem. As for the wound on my back, it needed to recover slowly. Only after hearing the doctor's affirmation did my mom slowly heave a sigh of relief. Back home, I slept soundly until dawn. Since I was discharged from the hospital, I hadn't slept this comfortably for a long time. When I walked to the living room, I heard my mom on the phone. Her tone was a bit harsh. "What are you calling for?" My steps stopped, and William's angry voice came directly. "Your daughter almost killed someone, and now she just ran away like this? She's at your place, right? Let her answer the phone. Come back and apologize to Mia." William's voice was cold, as if he couldn't wait to grab me back immediately to apologize to Mia. I was a bit dazed. William used to defend me like this too. At first, William and I were a couple that wasn't favored by others. Even though I got a job at the company through my own efforts, I couldn't escape being gossiped about as having used connections behind the scenes and having sold my body to obtain the position. Facing the pornographic rumors spread by my colleagues in the company, he directly sued those people in court, all because they had damaged my reputation. He said that my reputation was as important as the company's, and he didn't want anyone to slander me. But now the person he protects has changed to someone else, no longer me. Because of this, I gave up coming to Australia with my mom and refused the job arranged for me by my stepfather. I thought I could be with William until the end. But later, by chance, I overheard his conversation with his friends. At that time, everyone around thought William would marry me, that the rich young master would marry a Cinderella. But William just sneered. "You've read too many novels. No matter what, I won't marry her." She's really good to me, but she's only suitable as a girlfriend. My family is so wealthy. Who knows if she wants to marry me just because of our family property? She probably wants to marry into my family and turn from a crow into a phoenix. Since then, almost everyone who knew me thought I was a gold digger. You've already broken up with Daphne. What are you still pestering her for? Don't call again. We have nothing to do with you. My mom was so angry that her neck turned red. She roared into the phone receiver. Then, without waiting for William to say anything more, she hung up the phone. When she turned around, she found that I had been standing in the living room for a long time. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something to me but finally forced a smile. Did you hear everything? I shrugged, pretending not to care. Mom, didn't you say you're going on a date with an old friend today? Why get angry so early in the morning? There's no need. Hearing me say this, she let out a sigh of relief. It's great that you can think like this. Since you've decided to let go of the past, just live your own life well in the future and don't think about other things. I had expected that William would come to find my mom. Mia had an asthma attack and I disappeared. Without thinking, he would surely blame me for everything. Mom is going out today, and you can't be idle. Put on your clothes and go to this address. Mom has found you a nice date. My mom suddenly stuffed a small note into my hand. I felt like crying but had no tears. Mom, I just broke up. You want me to go on a blind date already? The old lady straightened her chest, looking quite self-righteous. How old am I? Just because you broke up doesn't mean you can't date again. Trust Mom's taste. In the end, I reluctantly accepted my mom's kindness. I went to the address on the note. As soon as I entered the restaurant, someone called out to me. It was a guy who looked about my age and seemed a bit familiar. Junior female schoolmate? Why are you in Australia too? The guy's excited voice brought me back to my senses. I realized that he was Daniel, my senior from the art academy. We had spent quite a bit of time together as we were in the same club. I remember you said you were going to develop in China at that time? On the eve of graduation, Daniel came to me. He asked me where I would go in the future. At that time, my relationship with William was relatively stable, so I answered without hesitation that I would continue to develop in China. Since then, Daniel and I had never been in touch. I never expected to meet him here, and even less expected that he was the blind date partner my mom introduced to me. Development in China was good, but my mom has settled here, so as a daughter, I naturally have to come here to help manage the family business. Daniel had always been a rather reserved guy in my memory, but when he met me, he seemed to become very talkative. So you've settled here now? Didn't Junior William come with you? You two should be getting married by now, right? Daniel's eyes sparkled as if he was looking forward to my answer. My hand froze, and then I forced a smile. We broke up and won't get married. It seemed like an illusion, but he actually smiled when he heard me say, broke up. Just as I finished speaking, there was a loud noise behind me. I turned around instinctively and was shocked to see William. William walked towards me with a cold face and grabbed my wrist without saying a word. Daphne, you came abroad to find another man? How dare someone like you say you love me? William gritted his teeth, and the veins on his forehead popped out. I didn't understand why he was so furious, nor did I understand why he was here. People around couldn't understand Chinese, but they knew someone was causing trouble and cast their gazes over. I grabbed Daniel's sleeve and didn't even give William a glance. After leaving the restaurant, William still followed me closely. You canceled your phone number. I found the phone you threw away at the airport. Do you know how crazy I was looking for you in China? I contacted everyone around me and even called the police. But you actually came abroad to date another man openly. Aren't you going to give me an explanation? William said a lot in a row. He reached out to grab my sleeve, and his chest was heaving violently. Seeing that I didn't react at all, he stood in front of me. Daphne, I need an explanation. It seemed that as long as I didn't give him a reason for leaving, he would keep chasing me. I suddenly found it ridiculous and looked at William coldly. William, where I go and who I have a meal with are my own business. Besides, we've already broken up. Just before throwing away my phone, I sent him a breakup text message. Someone as proud as him. How could he tolerate being unilaterally broken up with? William's eyes widened slightly, as if he couldn't believe what I said. He sneered. Break up? Daphne, stop making trouble. As long as you go back to China and apologize to Mia in person, saying that you didn't do it on purpose, I'll forgive you. I can pretend you never said the breakup thing, and I'll arrange a new position for you in the company. I won't treat you badly." Everything he said was so taken for granted, as if he was bestowing something on me. My hands hanging by my side slowly clenched, and my throat felt dry. Why should I apologize to her? You sent me the 10th anniversary text message. She fell on her own, and her asthma attack is her own fault. You're about to get engaged to Mia, yet you don't agree to break up with me. William, do you see me as a mistress you've kept for 9 years? With every word I said, William's face grew uglier. I also hope Mr. William can stay away from us. I don't want to have anything to do with you either. My tone was cold and distant. I deeply regretted why I had fallen in love with such a person who couldn't tell right from wrong. Mia besides seemed to understand what was going on. She suddenly stood in front of me. Mr. William, since Junior Daphne has made it so clear, you don't have to keep pestering her. After all, this isn't China. You don't want to keep embarrassing yourself, do you? Daniel's tone wasn't friendly. There was a confrontational atmosphere between the two. When had William ever been provoked like this? He was so angry that his whole body was shaking, and he raised his hand to punch Daniel. You're the bastard who seduced her, right? Instinctively, I stood in front of Daniel and somehow found the strength to push William away. He stumbled and fell to the ground with a lurch. He suddenly looked up at me, his eyes instantly turning red. You pushed me? You actually pushed me for another man. You weren't like this before. You've fallen in love with him. William almost roared at the end, but I didn't have time to care. I just focused my eyes on Daniel. After all, he was the blind date partner my mom introduced. If something happened to him, I wouldn't know how to explain it to my mom. Daniel shook his head and gave me a faint smile. I'm fine. Don't worry. William stood up rather awkwardly. That fall seemed to have been quite hard. His eyes shifted back and forth between me and Daniel, and then he suddenly gave a bitter laugh. Daphne, you've changed. When he looked at me, there was helplessness and confusion in his eyes. It was the first time I had seen William like this, and my heart trembled slightly. I grabbed Daniel's sleeve again and walked past William. It's not that I've changed. It's that you don't love me anymore. Live a good life with Mia. Don't come looking for me again. I'll have my own life too. From the moment he strayed, there was no going back for us. I thought William would never appear in front of me again after that. But unexpectedly, he actually rented a house near my place. Since I got a new phone, apart from a few good friends from China, I deleted the contact information of all other irrelevant people. They told me that William really went almost crazy after I left. He sent Mia to the hospital, only to find that she was actually fine. And later, when he found out I was missing, he almost turned the whole city of Beijing upside down. I think William might actually love you. I listened to what they said in silence and didn't respond. If it were before, I might have been so happy that I couldn't sleep. As long as he gave me a little more love, I would be happy for a long time. Now I just hope he would go back to China quickly and stop pestering me. Not only me, but my mom also noticed William's abnormal behavior. She often saw William standing downstairs of my house when she came back from going out. Sweetheart, we have a lot of properties. We don't need to stick to this place. If you really don't like it, let's move to another place, okay? My mom carefully observed my expression. She seemed worried that I would change my mind because of a little show of submission from William. I gave her a faint smile. Okay, I'll listen to you, Mom. My mom's expression relaxed a lot, and her tone became more urgent. Daniel told me that he's had a crush on you since before. Do you want to consider him? I knew what my mom was thinking. It was just that William's appearance made her feel a sense of crisis. She was afraid that her daughter would leave her again. But after what happened with William, I found that love was just too tiring. I didn't disclose the news of moving. Before leaving, I saw William still standing outside, not moving. He probably still thought I was just going out for something as usual and would be back soon. My mom saw it too, curled her lips, and cursed him under her breath, saying he deserved it. My stepfather left me a lot of assets. My mom chose a villa in the outskirts with a nice view and hired a few security guards. She also vowed to me that William would definitely not find us. For a whole week, I lived a peaceful life. As I expected, William didn't come to look for me again. But then I received a call from him. He changed his original SIM card. Before answering, I thought it was someone else, until his tired voice came through. Daphne, I know you don't want to see me. You even moved away and disappeared right in front of me. But I still have so much to say to you. William's voice was choked with sobs, and he started crying when talking to me. I slightly tightened my grip on the phone and didn't answer him. There was nothing left to say between us. He slapped me in public at the family dinner. After I begged him desperately, he pushed me down the stairs. Before I lost consciousness, I saw him rushing to protect Mia in his arms without hesitation, crying and shouting that he would never marry me. During the time I was struggling to survive in the ICU, William and Mia had already set their wedding date. For so long, I didn't want to endure that heart-wrenching feeling anymore. Even now that I'm living abroad and hearing descriptions from my old friends. They all said that William still loved me and that he went crazy after I left. I still didn't feel anything. It took only a moment to let go of 9 years of feelings. I didn't love him as much as I did 9 years ago. Maybe, as William said, I've changed. William, we've broken up. The past doesn't matter anymore. I don't hold any grudges against you, and you don't need to have any psychological burden. I just simply don't love you anymore. I could feel William's breath trembling on the other end of the phone. He let out a sob and then almost broke down. I didn't agree to break up. Don't you even want to listen to what I have to say now? I've canceled my engagement with Mia. The William family and the Mia family have always been family friends. Mia and I were supposed to get married. The gap in our status is too big. I wanted to marry you, but I couldn't help it. Just go back to China and tell my parents about your inheritance. I'm sure I can marry you. I sneered. After all, William was still using our status as an excuse for himself. You say you don't love me, but I still love you. Daphne, can you really let go of our 10-year relationship just like that? When you had that car accident, I rushed in desperately to save you. You said you would only be with me in this life and would never leave me. Now you're even annoyed by my explanation. My breath hitched slightly, and I closed my eyes. If William hadn't mentioned this, I might have already forgotten about it. 8 years ago, when William and I were deeply in love, the car accident triggered a fire, and the people around tried desperately to hold back the fearless William. But he didn't care about anything, saying that even if he had to die, he would die with me. Trapped in the sea of fire, my consciousness was blurred, yet I saw his figure running towards me. His leg was injured, but he didn't abandon me. He kept shouting, telling me not to fall asleep. Just before the car exploded, he carried me out on his back. When I woke up in the hospital, William held me in his arms and cried his heart out. Because of that car accident, his leg bone was broken, and his hands were badly mutilated. Even after several years, indelible scars remained. Daphne, have you forgotten how much we loved each other? Why won't you give me another chance? I took a deep breath, my fingers gripping the phone tighter and tighter, and finally letting go feebly. I have to admit that I was slightly moved when thinking about the past. Fine, let's set a time. Consider it a formal goodbye. When I saw William again, he was wearing the first shirt I gave him. He seemed very nervous when he saw me, his hands on his knees, and his eyes cautious. He brought me the photo album and diary I had thrown away, including the safety bracelet I left in the villa. He brought everything related to us that he could. Holding those things, he reminisced about our past. This was the amulet you got for me when I was sick, and then you bought this bracelet. You thought it wasn't suitable for a man to wear, but I've never taken it off. Are you really going to give all these up? William hung his head, not looking at me, just clutching the bracelet tightly, his voice pitiful. Back then, when I bought it, I looked at him with joy. Will people say a guy wearing a bracelet is sissy? If you really don't want to wear it, just keep it safely in the drawer. Even though I said that, he put it on without hesitation back then and has been wearing it for 9 years. William, the past is in the past. If you have something to say, you can just say it directly. William was about to pick up the diary I used to write and recall the past with me, but when he met my eyes again, his smile froze slightly, and he seemed a bit hesitant. However, he still raised his head, as if mustering up his courage. Daphne, can we not break up? I've left the William family and I won't marry Mia either. If you're settling here, then I'll stay with you. Don't you want to marry me? We can get the marriage certificate right now. If your mom doesn't like me, I'll try my best to make her like me. Daphne, does our 10-year relationship still count? Towards the end, William's voice trembled more and more. Perhaps even he himself knew that I wouldn't agree to him. But he still couldn't help but want to know the answer. William, ever since I left the hospital and went to the company to hand in my resignation letter, I've never thought about going back. I said softly. I'm doing well here. I don't have to live as depressingly as before. I had no status or position in the William family. When you cared about me, they would treat me better. When you ignored me, anyone could show me a sour face. I used to stay with you because I loved you. But now it's different. The guy you met some time ago is my blind date partner. I think I'll get the marriage certificate with him soon. It's not that I'm in love with him. It's just that we're suitable. Didn't you often say that in the past? I made myself very clear. William is so smart that he couldn't possibly not understand. When I left, he didn't follow me but just grabbed my sleeve. He opened his mouth, but in the end, he couldn't say anything. Go back to China and be the young master of the William family again. I shook off his hand and left without looking back. My relationship with William ended right there. Not long after, William returned to China. My friend told me that he agreed to his family's request and married Mia. And I got the marriage certificate with Daniel not long ago. Later, on the day of my wedding with Daniel, my mom pulled me back with a hesitant look on her face. Sweetheart, William is dead. My fingers, hidden behind my back, trembled slightly. I heard it was suicide. The funeral is in a week. Do you want to go back? I looked up at Daniel, who was wearing a suit and waving desperately at me not far away. I gently shook my head at my mom. I won't go back. I also stretched out my hand and took Daniel's. Let the past be truly in the past.